Welcome to Steve the Angry White Guy podcast. I'm Steve, and I'm a proud angry white man. If you're a snowflake, this isn't the podcast for you. You're not going to hear about things like managing your emotions and expectations, self-empowerment, diversity, equity, inclusion, political correctness, or inequality on this podcast. Rather, you're going to hear the truth. And if you're seeking the truth, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to get access to my free podcasts. Now buckle up, because here we go. Today's 5 good and bad things topic is Adolf Hitler. I don't know about you, but all I've heard about this guy are negative things, like he killed 6 million Jews. Wait, how does a guy kill 6 million people by himself? The typical response to that question is usually, come on, man, you know what I mean. No, actually, I don't. I base my understanding of what people mean by using these pesky little things called words. Yeah, words. Words matter. Perhaps a person should say, Germans that worked for Hitler's regime killed 6 million people, who were mostly Jewish people. That's getting closer, I think. Were the people that did the actual killing all Germans? No non-native Germans in the Third Reich? No illegal immigrants in that bunch? Not even one? Well, historical records tell us that the killings occurred in Germany, so we can say that people in Germany killed those 6 million folks. But were all 6 million of those poor souls Jewish? What makes someone Jewish? We'll investigate that later. Stick around. In the meantime, don't forget to smash that like button below and subscribe to my channel. So how about we say 6 million people were killed by... Wait, was it 6 million exactly who were killed? Not 5,990,267 people who were killed? And what does killed mean? Like, if someone accidentally causes the death of another, we typically say that they accidentally killed the person. So am I okay with using the word killed, meaning cause the death of? So historical records, which we will get to, relax, be patient, say that 6 million people, mostly Jewish, were killed. What's the evidence of this? Well, according to the Nuremberg trial transcript, specifically in an exchange between Major Walsh and the president in the transcript I'm about to read is referring to Sir Geoffrey Lawrence, the presiding judge of the International Tribunal at the Nuremberg trials. He was a British judge who served as the tribunal's president and often interjected during proceedings to clarify points or request further evidence. In this case, he was questioning Major Frank Walsh, one of the American prosecutors, about the source of figures related to the number of Jewish victims. Walsh states, I now wish to turn to 25 January 1944, 3 years and 1 month later, and make reference to another excerpt from Frank's diary. Now, before I read what Hans Frank wrote, you should know that Hans Frank was the Nazi-appointed leader of the General Government, which was the part of Poland that Germany occupied but didn't formally annex during World War II. Hans Frank held this position from 1939 to 1945. He was a senior Nazi official responsible for implementing German policies in Poland, including the persecution and extermination of Jews according to the verdict in the Nuremberg trials. He was convicted of war crimes and crimes against humanity and was executed in 1946. So Major Walsh continues quoting Hans Frank. At the present time, we still have in the general government perhaps 100,000 Jews. 2,400,000 and 3,400,000 Jews have been eliminated. Total number of Jews who died by Nazi hands, but it's believed that cumulative evidence would not vary the guilt of these defendants. I'm not sure what that means, but the transcript continues with Major Walsh stating, the deaths of 4 million Jews in camps and deaths of 2 million Jews by the state police in the East, making a total of 6 million. Adolf Eichmann, chief of Jewish section of the Gestapo, is the source. Dr. Wilhelm Hoyde, in affidavit form, made the following statement, and I quote from page 2. Approximately 4 million Jews had been killed in the various concentration camps, while an additional 2 million met death in other ways, the major part of which were shot by operational squads by the security police during the campaign against Russia, are almost without exception from the official sources of the president, interposing Major Walsh. Major Walsh replies, yes, sir. I made the statement that Eichmann was the source of the information given to Dr. Wilhelm Hoyde, one of his assistants. And on page 1 it says, according to my knowledge, Eichmann was at the time the leader of the Jewish section of the Gestapo. He knew that he would be considered one of the main war criminals by the United Nations since he had millions of Jewish lives on his conscience. I asked him how many that was, to which he answered that although the number was a Great Reich secret, he would tell me since I was a historian would be interested, and that he would probably not return anyhow from his command in Romania. He had shortly before that made a report to Himmler as the latter wanted to know the exact number of Jews had been killed. Yeah, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Can you say hearsay? He said, she said? How did this fly during these trials? Let's get this straight. The 6 million number came from Major Walsh quoting an affidavit written by Hoyde about what Hoyde says Eichmann said. So this isn't just he said, she said. This is he said that he said that he said. Huh. So why didn't Eichmann just testify himself? Well, apparently he was hiding until 1961. He must have been pretty good at hide and seek. That's almost 20 years, guys. Okay, so he finally gets found and stands trial. But does he admit to saying that 6 million Jews were killed? Wait for it. Nope. But he does admit to helping with the deportation of Jews to the camps. So let's just take Hoyde's word for it that Eichmann stated 6 million Jews were killed. Okay? But I still have an issue with 6 million being the exact number. And that 6 million was only stated during the actual trial. Maybe I'll post another video about the research and evidence that was done since the Nuremberg trials that corroborates the 6 million number. Okay, let's move past that. I think we can all agree that Hitler himself did not kill all those people, whether it be 6 million or 600, yes? Okay, so being that if this is a 5 good and 5 bad podcast, let's say the first bad thing about Hitler is that at best he ordered the deportation of Jews to camps. Is that fair? Even for you anti-Semites? Is that okay, Nick Fuentes? Oh, Nicholas. What a hypocritical lost soul. The sad thing is that he's moderately intelligent, though he claims to be a genius. Okay, sure, a genius who could make it even through an undergrad program and who constantly whines about being banned from most platforms, but bans and blocks people from his own platforms who don't agree with him. We'll get to him during future podcasts. Not a good guy. So deporting Jews to camps was definitely a no-no, so there's the first bad thing about Hitler. and most Jews were transported to the camps and trains, which brings us to the first good thing. Hitler's government implemented expansion of the Autobahn highway system, which contributed to the development of infrastructure and helped stimulate the German economy. So, there's one for the Fuhrer. Okay, bad thing two. His aggressive expansionist policies led directly to the outbreak of World War II, causing immense loss of life and destruction. See, Hitler believed the Aryan race, particularly Germans, Nordic people from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, Anglo-Saxons from England, the Northern French, Dutch, and people from certain parts of Belgium should lead people of other races. People like Jews, Slavs, Romani people, sometimes called Gypsies, Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians. And he attributed much of the development of modern societies to the accomplishments of Aryan people. In Mein Kampf, Hitler states, "For the organization of a Russian state was not the result of the political abilities of the Slavs in Russia, but only a wonderful example of the state-forming efficacy of the German element in an inferior race. Numerous mighty empires on earth have been created in this way." I don't know. Is it bad to think a particular group of people are better leaders than other groups based on what you've observed? I'm on the fence for that one, but definitely annexing sovereign countries by acts of war so that Aryans have more territory to rule over is not a good thing, so that's bad number two. Did this guy do anything else good other than expanding the Autobahn? Well, Hitler's regime is sometimes credited with stabilizing Germany's economy after the Great Depression, particularly through public works projects and rearmament. That's a pretty good thing for the Germans, at least. However, rearmament of the German war machine was probably not a good thing for non-Aryans who weren't willing to play ball with Hitler's regime. So maybe half good, one in the score column. Okay, one more bad. Hitler led a totalitarian regime that stripped people of their rights, banned opposition parties, and created an atmosphere of fear through violent repression and propaganda. I got that quote from ChatGPT. ChatGPT calling out propaganda? Well, that's the pot calling the kettle black, right? When I asked the ChatGPT to give an example of Hitler's regime stripping Aryan Germans of their rights, it stated the Reich Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, led by Joseph Goebbels, was established to control the media. This organization ensured that all news, entertainment, and cultural output adhered to Nazi ideologies. Why does that sound familiar? Where have we seen an organization controlling what people can say? Man, I know that sounds familiar in 2025, but why? Where might that be happening in America in 2025? In 2025? What about since I've been alive, which is a pretty long time? Man, what platforms am I thinking of that I just can't remember their name? Like a platform that doesn't allow you to swear or say anything negative about a certain group of people? Or use derogatory words about certain groups? But it's okay to use derogatory words about other groups and not be banned or demonetized. Man, it'll come to me. Who does that? Okay, I give up, but I know it exists. Could it be? Anyway, I think we can all agree that banning free speech goes in the bad column. And by the way, folks, there is no such thing as free speech with restrictions. Huh? Once you restrict speech, it's no longer free. That's like saying prisoners have freedom with restrictions. Anyway, has the world lost its mind or is it just me? But of course, in modern America, there are no restrictions placed on free speech like during those bad Hitler regime days, right? Watch. Ready? I can say, oh, wait, I can't if I want to keep making these videos. Apparently, people who lived in Germany during the Hitler regime were prohibited to speak negatively about the Nazi Party. Yeah, that's a bad thing. So I'm lucky to live in a country where I can speak negatively about certain groups I disagree with without being charged with a hate crime or canceled. Wait, can I? Things must have gotten better since the Hitler regime regarding speech, especially in America, who has a constitution that guarantees freedom of speech. Wait. Get real, Steve the angry white guy. What are you thinking? You can't say anything you want to say. And what's the matter with you? You could hurt someone's feelings if you say something that offends them. So, of course, it's reasonable for your speech to be restricted. Duh, don't you care about other people's mental health? So, another good thing about Hitler, we have two. Can we get three? Well, Hitler was effective at uniting the German population under nationalist pride. That's cool, right? Sort of like we have here in America, right? People being proud of our history, heritage, our founding. Man, isn't it cool how Americans cherish and take pride in her founding fathers by respecting and taking great care of their statues and memories? Nobody in America would ever think of tearing down any of those statues or burning the flag, right? Like in other countries who have a population of people who are not proud of their country. No, not here in America. No way. By the way, if there should be equal representation of blacks at companies like Apple and Amazon in certain position, shouldn't there be equal representation of whites making millions of dollars on NBA basketball teams? Just a thought. I know. But there's an unequal representation of owners that are white. Got it. Okay, so let's even the playing field. And what? Make the price of a basketball team lower and only open to blacks to bid on? Fine. But whites also need to make up 50% of the players. Actually 60% or about 50%, no matter how good they are, and be paid an equal amount of money as the black players in the league are. Deal? Right. Okay, another bad thing about Hitler, number 4. AI tells me he espoused and implemented ideas about racial superiority, advocating for the extermination or forced sterilization of those deemed racially inferior, particularly targeting Jews, Slavs, and others. Well, Mein Kampf is all I have to go on, is that's the only piece of literature that directly came from the Führer himself. And I don't use hearsay on this podcast. I get it straight from the source. So I searched for the words sterilization in Mein Kampf, and you know what I found? Sterilization? 0. Nada. Extermination? Well, the word was used 8 times. Want to hear how it was used? Here you go. What pained us most was the fact that this entire system was morally whitewashed by the alliance with Germany, with the result that the slow extermination of Germanism in the old monarchy was in a certain sense sanctioned by Germany itself. The second time, for this mummy of a state allied itself with Germany, not in order to fight a war to its end, but for the preservation of an eternal peace which could astutely be used as the slow but certain extermination of Germanism and the monarchy. The application of force alone, without the impetus of a basic spiritual idea as a starting point, can never lead to the destruction of an idea or its dissemination, except in the form of a complete extermination of even the very last exponent of the idea, and the destruction of the last tradition. Consequently, the complete annihilation of the new doctrine can be carried out only through a process of extermination so great and constantly increasing that in the end all the truly valuable blood is drawn out of the people or state in question. With real Marxist Jewish lies, they now attempted to hurry the comrades of the international proletariat back into the streets by totally twisting the facts and maintaining that our bands of murderers had begun a war of extermination against peaceful workers in Coburg. The Jewish train of thought in all this is clear. The Bolshevization of Germany, that is, the extermination of the national-focused Jewish intelligentsia, to make possible the sweating of the German working class under the yoke of Jewish world finance, is conceived only as preliminary to the further extension of the Jewish tendency of world conquest. As often in history, Germany is the great pivot in the mighty struggle. If our people and our state become the victim of these bloodthirsty and avaricious Jewish tyrants of nations, the whole earth will sink into the snares of this octopus. If Germany frees herself from this embrace, the greatest of dangers to nations may be regarded as broken for the whole world. If the German nation wants to end a state of affairs that threatens its extermination in Europe, it must not fall into the error of the pre-war period and make enemies of God and the world. It must recognize the most dangerous enemy and strike him with all its concentrated power. Not only did the English possess no interest in the total extermination of the German state, they even had a reason to desire a rival against France and Europe for the future. Hence, the French political leaders had to continue with determined peacetime labor that the war had begun. And Clemenceau's utterance that for him the peace was only the continuation of the war took on an increased significance. Wait, is there more? Nope. Again, in ChatGPT says that in Mein Kampf, Hitler advocated the extermination and or forced sterilization of those he redeemed racially inferior, particularly targeting Jews, Slavs, and others. Well, I also looked for speeches, transcripts, and the like for albeit only around an hour, and could not find any evidence of him calling for the extermination or forced sterilization for those he deemed racially inferior, particularly targeting Jews, Slavs, and others. Just like I haven't been able to find any evidence of Joe Biden saying that he wants illegal immigrants to come to America, or he wanted illegal immigrants to come to America. Again, I only searched for about an hour, but I couldn't find anything. Just like I haven't been able to find Donald Trump saying that he hates Mexicans. In fact, all I hear him say is how much he loves the Mexican people and how they love him. Notice, he never, I mean never, says anything positive about white people. And believe me, I've looked. Nothing, nada. Just saying. Oh, he loves the Mexican people, and he made sure to keep DACA, He signed a bill to fund opportunity zones for mostly non-white people to be able to open businesses. Not too many of those opportunity zones in states where a lot of white people live. He unconstitutionally banned bump stocks on rifles. His own Supreme Court even ruled against his tyrannical action. But he never said he hates Mexicans. And like he says,
that I will get over 95% of the African American vote. I promise you.
So let's say if Hitler's regime passed some laws that called for the extermination and sterilization of Jews and Slavs, that would be a bad thing. I think our friend Nick might even agree with that. What do you say, Nicholas? A no-go on the extermination and sterilization of people based on their race? Come on, man. Meet me halfway. Oh, I kid, Nick, as Bill Maher would say. Okay, so we need a good thing for Adolf. By the way, who would name their kid Adolf? Man, out of all the names you could choose, was your favorite great uncle Adolf that special? Anyway, apparently, under Nazi rule, advancements were made in areas like rocketry, medical research, and jet technologies, which laid the groundwork for post-war scientific progress. That's a good thing, right? I mean, the Germans still make pretty good cars, no? And if the Hitler regime was so tyrannical and oppressive, how were these advancements made? Were all the scientists and engineers independently wealthy so they could fund their own research? I don't know. They developed the V-2 rocket, jet-powered warplanes, sulfa antibiotics. They developed plastics and a host of other things during the Hitler regime. And engineers in America in 2025 can't even figure out how to make a cell phone that turns on in less than 10 seconds after hitting the power button or stops playing frickin' music when you close the music app. Oh, I'll rant about modern technology later. Hey, Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z 2025 engineers, listen closely. Are you listening? You need to increase the frickin' font size on everything. Even people with better than 20/20 vision can't read the small fonts you use. And I don't need you to tell me that listening to loud music might damage my frickin' hearing. Get rid of that stupid notification every time I turn up the volume on my cell phone. Don't get me started, man. Okay. Finally, the fifth bad thing about Hitler, other than his haircut and mustache. According to ChatGPT, under Hitler's rule, Germany was plunged into extreme militarism, economic collapse, and widespread suffering. Many German civilians also suffered under his policies, which led to the devastation of cities, livelihoods, and families during and after the war. So yeah, if you lose a war, well, there are going to be some unwanted and unpleasant changes. So that's definitely a bad thing. But I'm not sure we can attribute Germany losing the war to Hitler's policies. Perhaps we'll take a deeper look at his specific policies that directly led to Germany's temporary decline. Though I suspect AI asserts that, but for Hitler's horrible views regarding race and his fascist totalitarian rule, Germany would not have been involved in World War II, and therefore would have been spared of its post-war collapse. Maybe? But any country's collapse goes into the bad column in my book. So I'm sticking with a bad for that one. Sorry, Führer. Aww. Now, the final and fifth good thing. Hitler promoted the idea of economic self-sufficiency, which he called autocracy. aiming for Germany to depend less on foreign trade. Sound familiar? Some aspects of this policy were meant to boost national pride and reduce reliance on outside powers. It's curious that the developer of AI ChatGPT also felt compelled to say, "It's important to recognize that these positive aspects should not be used to excuse or minimize the vast atrocities and suffering caused by the Hitler regime. The negative aspects far outweigh any temporary or contextual benefits his rule may have brought." Really? Isn't ChatGPT supposed to be an unbiased computer software? It's like typing 2 times 2 in your calculator and the calculator offering its opinion on world trade. Try Google searching words like Nazi, KKK, Hitler, white pride, or anything remotely similar. All the search results are negative and demeaning. Surely, some white pride groups must have websites. There are still several KKK groups in the US. Surely they have a website. Nope, you won't find any of it, at least on Google. But there are plenty of black, gay, lesbian, trans, Hispanic, and other pride websites that come up in Google searches all the time. Why is that? Like Arsenio used to say, let's see if I can do it. Things that make you go, So, what do you think? Was Hitler the evil monster people in the West make him out to be? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, you'll only get the truth here, straight from the mouth of Steve the Angry White Guy. See you on the next video.